Okay, 1289, good luck. So a bit of a rating gap there. Opponent has 4,500 games of Rapid. That's a lot of games of Rapid. I'm not far off 900 now. What to do? Let's play Sicilian for this one, just for that little bit of variety. I normally do G6 or E6. Because he's played the bishop up, I'll play E6 just to try and stop any immediate attacks to the F7 pawn. Okay, so I can launch immediately in the center, but I prefer to play A6. Go for this card setup, E6 and A6, and then try and just develop your pawn here. Okay, so we can do that with tempo. You'll have to go back and we can get our bishop developed. It's a perfectly good development move, so he'll drop his bishop back. But we're still trying to stick to principles, find a way to get castled, then worry about what to do. So he just wants to drop his bishop back there. The bishop's not actually trapped. You can move either of your pawns on the following move, so your bishop's fine. You just need to drop it back. Okay, he's thinking an unusual amount of time, isn't he? Wait, he's trapped his bishop deliberately, that looks like. Unless my opponent is, you know, what you would say a relative beginner. Which he could be, of course. I'm going to go d6 here. What I'm trying to do here is play e5 just to restrict the scope of this bishop. I'm just trying to basically potentially be able to close this center path down for this bishop. Because we're still just trying to get castled, and then once we're castled, we'll then worry about trying to attack. So he's played bishop forward this way. So it gives us again another chance to develop a pawn with tempo attacking the bishop. Or we can bring the knight up, which looks like a good move, covering these squares. Or the bishop, but we still need to get developed on the king's side. Lots of options. I like the idea of knight up here just to charge these squares, but is he going to actually look to push? He might do. He might do. No, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to play the pawn into the center, just get a tempo attacking the bishop, and it still closes this diagonal down if he ends up coming back. If he comes here, I'll just develop the bishop and charge that bishop. We've got a nice path now for our light squared bishop. We've still got a path for our knight here, so he's gone back one. So now I think the knight up getting developed is a very nice natural move. We'll look to play the bishop up, we'll get castled. Knight or bishop can come here. But I don't want to try attacking until I've completed my development, so I'm going to do that now. I don't see any reason not to. If the knight comes in, we've got the option to take, or we can just ignore it. Now, we've got a choice. We can castle or we can take. They're the two main candidate moves. There are other moves like bishop up. But if he takes here, I just take back. And it's... well, we've got the extra piece, haven't we? So I'm going to allow him to do that. He can take either piece if he wishes, or he can leave it there. But I've got my castling done now. So opponent can do the same thing, or you might take either of these pieces, or look for another development move. But now we've castled, we can start getting a little bit more attacking. If I was white, I'd probably just castle here. Just think of your king's safety first and then worry about what to do as a general good guide. But he could take the knight or the bishop. Nothing wrong with that, but he's a piece down. So when you're a piece down, you generally want to try and keep pieces on the board if you possibly can. Whereas conversely, because we're a piece up, it's a good idea to get pieces off the board. So he has castled. So it makes a great deal of sense to take here, get the knight off the board, slightly damage this structure, and then a move like bishop up. And that's going to be quite awkward for white. So we're going to take here and then maybe develop the bishop and come back over. And we're going to try and work on this pin. If the queen moves, we'll just take the knight. We could take the knight anywhere. Okay, so he has come forward. So for now, I'll go back. It's a good move. Just kicking the bishop back gives your king an emergency square. We'll have to do the same thing at some point with one of our pawns. And then we still got our knight to get into play. We've got one obvious square, so don't need to think too much about that. And we've got the option maybe takes and bishop up, and we can get both pieces off the board. So that's perfectly good strategy. Minimizing the risk, maximizing the chances to convert. Okay, so he's developed his rook, a good development move. So now I like the idea, complete our minor piece development. So now I'm looking at actually taking, so he's cut that off. So we'll just drop back here. I don't see any point in sacking the piece there. You could do, but I don't see any benefit. So maybe we can play h5 just to try and disturb this structure, but it's probably about as good as white could hope for here. So we'll try and... okay, what's he done there? He wants to launch here. That might allow me... because the knight's moved back, he allows my bishop in potentially. If pawn comes up, I just take. Otherwise, we can trade that bishop off. And I like the look of that. So I'm going to play bishop up. So he could trade. No need to pre-move, though. It is a rapid game. Let's just see what he does. He could develop his queen. He doesn't. He takes, so we'll take back. So again, he's trying to play a move like f4. We can see the concept of what he's trying to do. So do we need to do anything about it? We can just pop our queen to f4 and that kills the move instantly. Unless he trades the queen, then it removes a lot of risk. We're not coming under attack from the knight. Now we can go here and attack the pawn, but you've got king up. We can play h5. If you push forward here, we just take. Is that a little bit bold? I think I don't mind if he plays this, because I think I would just simply take. Knight up though, it's a little bit of risk, isn't it? A little bit of risk. I'm actually going to play the queen here, just to stop f4. If he offers something like a queen trade, I'm very happy to trade the queen. I'm going to try and activate a rook and get on an open file. Maybe push a pawn and give the knight an active square. Maybe we can, lots of plans. We can try and run this pawn as far down the board as we can. We can try and push this pawn. So we're just trying to find a way to break through to his king. Excuse me. Queen f3 as well. I'll just trade the queens. You know, it'd be good to get the big pieces off the board. So he's played f3, so that allows us to check if we want it, but I don't see any benefit to that right now. We could push here, but that might open the file, so I think it's time to move a rook across and just get a rook onto the open file. Okay, so he's pushed a pawn up. So that allows us to play a rook up, and we're actually creating a mate in one threat there, so he might have to play a move like rook up, so he might have simply not seen that. It's possible to miss. He's got rook up, but if I take king takes, I win the knight anywhere. Just a simple mistake. Simple mistake, and we're just crashing through now. Got a check, but taking the knight is a mate in one threat. I don't see how you actually easily deal with that. If you say rook up, we can just take, and if king takes, we win the knight as well. You see, my opponent knows the basics very well. I just went wrong in the opening, getting the bishop trap, pushing the wrong pawn. Okay, he's found rook up, so we just take that. And then we should win the knight next move, assuming that the king captures back. Okay, so we're going to take the knight. Then we want to try and get the queen off the board if we can. So if the king goes back over, we'll just check and trade. Takes all the risk out of it. I mean, it's technically possible to lose, of course, but I don't see any reason in trying to be clever or fancy here. I'll check on the light square just because it gives us the option to hit the pause, but all I'm trying to do is take the queen. So just step your king forward somewhere, we'll trade the queen. Obviously, it's technically possible that you could blunder the back rank, or you could mouse slip. I could drop the queen a square short there, so anything's technically possible, but put the rook on the one open file. Then I'm going to push a pawn somewhere, just so I don't blunder the back rank. Any of them will do, I guess. He's come across. I think I'm going to just push this pawn up, just so I definitely don't blunder that back rank mate in one. Rook across will just simply trade. Okay, he's pushed forward. So we want to try and actually break through now. How do we do it? I'm going to try and push this pawn down the board. I've got to be a little bit careful doing that because after a trade, his king is relatively close to my pawn, actually, isn't it? Got to pay a little bit of attention. Yeah, I think I bring my rook forward. And if he ever comes across, I can just leave my rook there and allow him to do the trade and I take back. So I want to get my bishop into play now. So here, down, allows a pawn push. I quite like the look of that. I'll change this structure. Okay, now I'm going to charge it again. I can always guard my bishop if I need to. I've got knight across to come in here as well. So he's kicked the rook now, so we need to come back. Now if we go across, we're probably getting trapped, so we don't do that. So I'll just come back on a nice square where we're protected by the knight. But now I've got pawn up threatening to come here. Okay, I'm going to play king up here and guard my bishop. So if he takes, I'm okay to take back. And then I'm going to look to push my pawn in and try and get my rook further forward. He's finding a lot of good moves here and he's doing well defensively. If I take back with a knight here, there's nowhere further to actually go, so I'll just take back with a pawn if he takes. You can see I've done a pre-move there because of the different colour on the highlight. Okay, so he's moved his rook back, so now I'm going to stick to the plan. So I'm going to push the pawn forward, threatening a check and winning a pawn and driving the king backwards. And if our rook gets forward, our knight might be able to come in. It's a little bit awkward, but we'll find a way through eventually. We could think of pushing this pawn. If opponent pushes, I think it looks good to take, then the knight gets the square. We can threaten to take here and just maybe start to work on pushing this pawn. Oh, he has actually done that. That feels like a mistake, but to be fair, there's not really much else white can do, but it gives us a nice square for the knight here. But I'm going to throw a check in first and plant the rook and then try and bring the knight forward. Again, if he takes, I'm still fine to take back. Knight up will create an extra attack on the pawn. Okay, so bring our knight up and double attack the pawn, still attack this pawn. Okay, so he's come forward. Now, there is a hit to this pawn as well. I can obviously take here. Is there any tricks? I don't see them. We can just take this pawn as well. Now, if I take here, take, he's got a passed pawn. I think I should take this one. It might be a mistake, but I think I should. He might push here and try and create a pawn, but I'm fine to defend it. It looks like I'm fine to defend it, but he's got the right concept. Obviously, I've got enough here. King's close enough to stop the pawn. He's found a lot of decent moves, so he's doing pretty well here. But we shouldn't really be in any danger, but it doesn't mean it can't go wrong. So I think now I'm just going to bring the king across. I just got to be careful. So takes, rook takes, and I'm still covering just fine. So king up looks like a nice move. Again, I'll pre-move in case he takes a pawn. If he doesn't, it won't happen. So if he sacks, I'm fine to take back. We cover the pawn push and the king's close enough as well. We could just sack the bishop. If you're in doubt, give up your bishop. He takes, then you take this pawn and you're still a piece up. So if you're in doubt and you're not calculating it too well, you can give up your piece here to get rid of his two dangerous pawns. Yeah, indeed, he has come forward, threatening to queen next move. So it's just a case of, do I want to take this pawn first or do I take back? I think I should just take back. Just be sensible, take with a knight. But he's done his best and there's not much else he could have done there. He's put in a decent effort there. Not much else he could have done. Just that little mistake in the opening. It could have been a much closer game. But now we're just going to march our pawns up. Slowly, steadily does it. Bring the knight back. Maybe take here. Okay, so I guess we will take now. I've still got to pay attention to stalemate tricks because the pawns can't move. So you might get a position. If the king can ever not move, he can then try and just sack the rook. So that could be a bit nasty. So the king can't step forward here. So I'm going to finally take the pawn, I think. Finally take the pawn now. You're just going to be careful that if the king gets into a box where the king can't physically move, you can then try and sack the rook forever, and you won't be able to take it back. So he's come forward. Okay. I'm just going to push up now and threaten to actually trap the rook. The king's definitely got legal moves. You can see plenty of them. So he's gone back now. So I think we can actually trap the rook now. Just get the rook off the board. Take that little bit of risk out. The king can definitely make some legal moves. And he resigns. But that was a good effort when I consider he's lost a piece early in the game. That was a good effort. So well done. And again, no rating for that. Okay, so we've got 46 moves. So they're the move times for both players. Let's just put it through the analyzer. But it was really just the early piece, and then we've managed to convert it relatively comfortably. But we'll just see what mistakes there were, if any, especially in the opening. So +8 there, and it has come back a bit. So we've not been playing it perfectly. We've actually come back down a bit here, but I just want to try and play to win the games. I don't really mind how I win them. Yeah, a little bit up and down after that early mistake. So it's 95%, but 88% accuracy from our opponent. There's only 3 moves that's flagged that were not really good moves. Literally just 3 moves. Wow. We've got a couple of inaccuracies. Look at that over our opponent. Just 1 blunder, 1 mistake, 1 inaccuracy. He's found an awful lot of good moves once he's lost that bishop early on. It's actually quite a high figure, isn't it? Quite a high figure, that. Let's just have a quick flick through. I'm just looking for common sense moves. If I play the Sicilian, I often go for this Khan setup with e6 and a6. Then in this position here, you can see you could have just dropped the bishop back. I wonder if he did a mouse slip there or something. It's possible. You could have played the bishop back and then push either of your other pawns the next move, and the bishop wouldn't be trapped. But after this, as you see, the rest of the game, there's only a couple of moves where he's found which are not really good moves. They're all good moves that he's been playing here. The engine's not flagged anything. So rook to e1, yes, and just be a bit bold. Just play g4 immediately. Take that pressure off the knight, which of course he does the next move. And here we've been a bit fortunate here. We've managed to win another piece. Then just get the queen off the board. It takes virtually all of the risk out of the game, but they say you can still technically blunder. Of course you can. You can do a horrible mouse slip somewhere, but it was just relatively comfortable after this. But he's found a way to try and push his pawns through here to create a passed pawn, but obviously we're able to calculate quite comfortably. We're in time to stop the pawn, even if he was to sack the rook here. I'm just trying to play a relatively low risk chess if I can, get the rook off the board, and then eventually we're going to be able to run the pawns all down the board. So one of them will queen somewhere, so it was a good effort, isn't it? Very good effort from opponent there, so well done.